what's new in the latest maintenance release of the Civil 3D State Kit. My name is Randy Roberts, working in Central Office in Tallahassee. Like I said, this is part 1 of 2, and today I'm going to be covering most of the items that I support, along with some new workflow that we have instituted in the State Kit. You may or may not know it. I know if you've been to my regional training, you've seen it. And I'm going to be using 2018 version today. And we do have what we just released, a maintenance release for 2018 and 2017. And looking forward, we have in October, first week of October, we're going to be releasing the initial 2019 State Kit and a maintenance release of 2018. We're not going to do a maintenance release of 2017. If you still have an active project ongoing with quantities and whatnot, we definitely will be supporting that if any pay item information changes or whatnot. So we'll keep you going with that. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to be covering today is our CAD training guides that we have now, Civil 3D training guides, a little bit of what's changed in the drainage with the drainage parts list and pay item tools, quantities, and a couple of, one tidbit on the survey, something we discovered on that. First thing I want to go over is our CAD training guides and the location of where they are. This is our production support web page for our office. And on the bottom, there are CAD training guides link. So if you click on it, opens up a Bentley MicroStation and Autodesk, and we are filling these up. Currently, we have the Civil 3D Drainage, Subassembly Composer, and Civil 3D Traffic Plans. There is also my quantities, that manual that I wrote, which will be up here within a week. But if you go to them, you see that you have the PDF, the guide itself to download. You have a data set start and complete. The data set start gives you all the files that you will need to get started and go through the manual. And then there's a complete data set, which is completely done. So hopefully you'll start out with the start and go through and end up with a complete. But if you get lost or anything, you always have a finished file there. And it's written in pretty plain language. If you can follow steps, you can use it. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert in Civil 3D to be able to do this manual. And we have an SSA manual that will be here on this location along with my quantities. And there's also a 3D modeling training manual, and these are all free. You can click on them, you can download them, and you can go through them at your own pace. So we're pretty pleased that we've got this going, because it's been very helpful. Now, what I'm going to show first is concerning our drainage parts list. So I'm going to go tool space settings to our parts list and edit the FDOT drainage. And on the structures, you'll notice that the index numbers have changed. We do have an older reference number here, 200, 201, 210. If you're very familiar with those, it'll help you navigate to the new numbers, which you can easily get to from the plan standards. Now, when you delete or add a part family back, you'll see it has the new number, but it does not have that older number as a reference. Hopefully it'll get you acclimated to using the newer number instead, getting off of the old reference. But I can see you can add your part families back, and it's got the correct numbers, so you don't have to worry about that. There are a couple of old legacy parts in here. you'll notice index number, it says deleted 258 straight sand, cement, end wall. That's been taken out of the parts list and out of our standards. We're going to leave it in here just a little bit longer, depending on if you have a legacy project going on and you still need that part. It's still there. And in the pipes, there are two new part families. Pipe culvert arch, which is the storm cross drain. There's also a storm drain. So everything that's in the basis of estimates that has a pay item number, went ahead and added these into our parts list. They were not included originally, so I took care of that. Comes complete with its pay item number. And there's also a storm cross drain jack and bore option out of the basis of estimate. So this is now in the drainage parts list. I believe I added the arch and the jack and bore option right after our maintenance release went out. If you're actively working on a project that actually requires these arch pipes, I can get you this parts list, or not, just hang tight, and within 5 to 6 weeks, when the next release comes out, you'll get them then. So we got another new option concerning with drainage, which is our summary of drainage structure report. And currently, right now, it is located in the FDOT 2018.C3D folder. We don't have a 2017 version, so it only works 2018. But even if you have a project that is in 2017, you can still use this because it just reads the information that's in that file structure-wise. And as you know, our parts list, we keep bringing them forward, so there's not really a version difference between 17 and 18. There's no changes that we do to them. They just keep going forward and used in the next Civil 3D version. But in the folder that's on your desktop, that's installed when you install the state kit, there's a new summary of drainage structures shortcut. If you double click on it, it brings it up, and it's a pretty simple application to use. You don't have to have Civil 3D open and running. Takes the file in the background, opens Civil 3D, checks out the drainage that's in that file, pulls the information out, and puts it in a spreadsheet for you. You can have Civil 3D running. Going to launch and open a new session for using the application. Now going forward, we probably will have this also on the ribbon to be able to be executed from. The functionality of this is you can add files or you can add a folder. So if you have multiple drainage files in your project that you want to run to get one report, you can do that. Maybe better to run it outside of Civil 3D, save some time, because you know how when you open up your drainage files, they're huge and it takes forever. So this eliminates having to have it open. So to use it, just click on Add Files. I have a test file here. Click Open. Now I can add, like I said, multiple files or folders, whichever one. I don't think there's a limit to the number of drawing files that you can have open here to run. There is a path, drainage path here. This is where your spreadsheet, your report will reside. Typically it would be in your calculations or drainage folder in your project. There's also an analysis path, and what that does is gives you a total number of your structure and pipes that are in your project. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to click on Generate Drainage Summary, because all it's going to do, if you notice, I do have Civil 3D open. It would start the process, open up a new session of Civil 3D, technically open that file, but you don't see it, gets the information, closes the file, and then launches Excel with the information already filled out for you. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Open it up. Depending on the number of structures you have in your file, it could take a couple of minutes to run that report. But when you get it back, you get just like what you would expect with the report, the description, the side, the station, the structure number themselves, and a count of your pipes, your sizes combined, your curb inlets. This file has some in there, and keep going over. I got some in walls. I got some mitered in sections in here, cross drain mitered in sections, and side drain. And when you get to over here, it has the sod, the concrete, the steel, riprap, if that's a part of that part. On the remarks, it has the alignment name that it's pulling off of. So your default remarks are your alignment name, and then you can add in manually what else you need. Now you notice that that report is very large, a lot of columns in there. It's best to, when you run the report and you have empty columns that you didn't use, don't need, go ahead and delete them in the Excel spreadsheet, so it will shrink down your report, and then from there you would link it into your drawing file so it would fit. And you can either make your manual edits, add back the columns, or rerun a report if you needed a column that you deleted, you needed it later. Okay, so that's the summary of drainage, how it works. Let me show you one other thing on that. It's the analysis report. I don't know if you're gonna, Civil 3D does have built-in reports with structures too, but this is a quick and easy, gives you your structure numbers, station, side, the part description itself, and the part size name. So it gives you a little bit more detailed information on your what's in your design file. Now we will be coming out with additional drainage reports. There's a couple that you can get on the GeoPack side, so a little bit more analysis related. So hopefully we'll have the developer working on those and get those included. Okay, so let me close that, my drawing. And now that concludes the drainage portion. So let's go to the pay item tools, which are located on the FDOT ribbon right here, which is the entity manager, FDOT Signs, the multi-line pavement markings, and place block group. Okay, so I'm going to start with the FDOT Signs. This version has been out a little tweaks to how it functions. But what I want to focus on here, the most important part, when you first install the state kit and you first open your FDOT Signs, you need to go to the user setting tab, and you'll see all the pathing here. And there's probably 100% chance, if it's the first time you've seen it, the pathing, the version is not current with what you have. That was hard coded into the application itself, so I could not set it up for you. So when you installed it, everything would be already set up. But what we did come up with was a quick and easy method to get it set. There's an XML file that we maintain here that gets delivered with the state kit that has all the settings that I want the sign tool to be set up with, so you can use it right out of the gate without any editing. Under the admin only, just expand that, there's a load default settings. So this is the first thing you do. Open FDOT Signs, go to user settings, and load the default settings that are already set. Now you can edit this, and this is located on C drive, the installation folder, apps, FDOT Signs, there is a settings default XML. So it's a little cleaner here. So I come in as we do edits here in the CAD office and new versions come out. I go in and change these so you don't have to mess with it, but just load the default file here. And if there is a setting that you don't want to use in your project or in your firm, you can go into this file, change it, and then have your users load this file on their machine. So it's an easier way to get your settings sent down the line. And as you know, you can hit F1 on any of our tools, go to help file, go to the quick clip link and get some information on how it runs. And speaking of quick clips, me and Mike will be updating. We have a list of applications that we're going to be updating the video for them since they've changed drastically. So they need a little facelift. So we're going to be doing that over the next couple of months. So, all right, I was going to show you on the sign tool, 2-point twist this, and this just another general tip here. In this file here, I have view frames. I don't have sheets created, but when you're doing your proposed design, you're signing a pavement marking, you're going to want view frames in there so you can label them. So what I'm doing here on a 2-point twist, which is just really going to take the sheet 3 here and rotate it to mimic a sheet. And 2-point twist, you can just go along each view frame window itself, rotate it, label your design. You can exit out, you can save it and come back into the file. You're always going to be able to hit the untwist view up here. So you don't have to remember to hit untwist before you exit out. All right, so now you see sheet 3 has rotated correctly, and you also see that the labels rotated because the style that the settings in the style we have, it rotates and orients to the view frame itself. So one of the more neat features of the sign tool now is I can copy an entire assembly, including the labels, and just using regular AutoCAD copy, just copy it down, hit enter, and it will rotate relative to the alignment, and the station will update. The station updates, the pay item's good. What it does within the sign tool, it does give it there's a 3-digit integer at the end of each name that counts up. So 001, 002. So if you have the same sign, it just adds a different number on the end of it. One other thing on the sign tool, if you're working with creating your assemblies in guide sign and you want to use the sign tool to insert them in your design file, this custom guide file setting here, this path, you would constantly need to be changing that to your actual guide sign worksheet. So in this case, I have one set up here, going to look in that drawing file for any block that I have in there. So when you do your guide signs and you do your design file, you will need to right block, W block, your panel, give it a name, S-01, 02, 03, and so forth. So it's easy to identify. Make sure you remember the panel size, because you'll have to type that in. But when you go to, and you're ready to put it in here, when you create new assembly, under panel class, there's a spec option here. Now, if you have pointed your path to a file that does not contain a block, the spec will not show up. So if it goes through the file, reads it, and it's valid, it will have a spec option here. And from here, you would pick the actual block name. So S02, I have 3 blocks that I created in there. And I do believe that all these extra blocks here, that's been cleaned up in the new release. So I noticed that they were stray blocks in our FDOT master. These technically should reside only in the survey template. So went ahead and took those out. But anyway, after you select the block name, you would enter the size in, and you continue on just like any other sign assembly using the sign tool. Pavement markings. A couple of new things got introduced here. We have, for instance, go to navigate to your inside pattern. Normally you would have to drill down and get to the exact pattern itself. There's now a search function along the top here. So if you do know the actual pay item number, you can type it in and you can search for the pattern that you're going to use, which makes it a lot easier. So if I go 0710 and that's all I know, you can hit search and it will bring up all the 0710s and expand those. So you don't have to know, if you know parts of the pay item number, you can enter it in, which makes it easier. And of course, you know that there's a history here. If you've on a brand new project, it doesn't have a history, but as you do your design, this will populate. So for instance, solid, let's do a solid. Let's enable the outside. Now before, if you remember, you had to navigate back and refine that pattern. Well, now there's a new button here called Use Inside Stripe for Outside, which automatically, as long as it's the same, you can, it just duplicates the inside and outside together. And the outside also has the history too. You've got 2 solid lines, 12 foot. You also have a justification. If you'll notice, for my offset, I put 12. But it did 6 feet from the center line. That's because I had center justification. If you do the outside, there we go. So now on the using the inside option, it's 12 foot off the alignment and then 12 foot for another striping. Other than that, there's nothing new in the pavement marking tool and any of the other modes. Block group is the same, where it has the search feature with the database, which is using the entity manager database, behaves the same. And another tip with the place block group, in case you did not know, you can use your own blocks. There's a browse for blocks button. So if you wanted to use the place block group and you have your company's got certain blocks you want to put in along an alignment as an array, you can insert your own blocks. So that's been in there a while, I just didn't know. Place block group, another feature that's been in a couple of releases is you can save your pattern. So if you have a painted pavement message, a multiple painted message here, you can save the pattern, saves it as an XML file, like the sign tool does, and has the pay item information intact, and you can reload it and replace it. Otherwise, you'd have to either browse to it here or go through Entity Manager and do it. So let me bring up Entity Manager right quick. Now you saw me load those patterns through pavement marking. It's really a lot easier if you go and find the pattern itself in EMX. You right click, you have an option here, Place Pavement Marking. That's an easier way to bring up your pattern to, I think it's pretty neat shortcut there. That was a line, a pattern. If you had a block, it will do message. You can right click and now place block group is there. So it depends on the entity itself, what you're going to use. You can, your tool of choice to place it. So we're going to get back with Entity Manager here, but we're going to go into quantities. So I'm going to close Entity Manager. Takeoff Manager, a little bit has changed. I'm going to get into the new stuff in a bit, but there's an old feature here that's been in here for a while. Doesn't get enough credit. The pay item filters. I don't know if you've used these or not, but you know, a file can be really busy, have a lot of pay item information on it, but you just want a simple report. So of a specific item or specific category. So you select the pay item filter, and as you can see, here's a category here. If I select it, it selects everything in here. Now, you may not want everything in here, so you can actually drill down to the actual individual item to run your report. So if I just click one, you can run it. Once it's selected, you hit close, run your report for what you need to do. But what you got to remember, when you're done with your pay item filters, you need to open it back up, hit clear selection, and then close it. That returns it back to its default state. So if you're running an issue, stuff's not reporting that you have to manually clear your pay item filters because it remembers and retains that. So open it, clear section, and hit the X to close it back. Close Takeoff Manager. Let me get back into my signing and pavement file. We're going to talk about quantities by sheets, which is for your traffic plans. Since quantities for lighting and signing and pavement marking are based on a per sheet count, there's a application that will now do that. You can see I got back in here, it's still twisted. So I'm going to leave it twisted, the view, while I discuss this. Now, you have to have some requirements to run the quantities by sheet. You have to have a view frame group present. It can either be in the source file or data referenced in. You need to have an alignment. You can bring in as an XREF your signing and pavement file, or use your source file here. So for instance, here I'm using your source signing and pavement file, a data referenced in, the view frames, and I have two alignments in this file. Another thing you need to be aware of is when you create your view frame groups, it's going to, for each alignment, it's going to start with sheet 1, 2, 3, 4. Then on the other alignment, start with sheet 1, 2, 3, 4 also. You can't have duplicate names or numbers in your view frame groups. That's because when you run your report, you're going to want to run everything. You can run multiple alignments. You can run all your view frame groups that are in here, and the program doesn't know how to handle when you have two sheet 3s or two sheet 1s. Keep that in mind when you're using this tool. So let's go to run it. Takeoff Manager. Under Report Extents, there is a pull down, and you have a quantities by sheet, and a new dialog box comes up. View frame groups present. The baseline 98 and the state route 61. If I click on one, it tells you the sheet numbers for each. State route 61 has 6, and baseline 98 picks up at 7 and 8. I think I was backwards when I was first telling you that. So there is 8 total sheets. They don't duplicate the sheet numbers. And a little tidbit for you here, view frame has 2 designators. It has a sheet number and a sheet name, and they both can be different. So you can manage it through your sheet numbers. Typically, you'd be running this anyway at the end of your design. So you may already have your sheets actually done and set up, and that would be done properly anyway. But if you wanted to just run a quick report, you would have to do it this way. All right, so I can select both, and currently I have 8 view frames. And if I wanted to run a report on all of them, I would left click, hold my left mouse button down and drag it down, let go. Or you could use Control to select all your sheets. For your file output directory, you would put it in your calculations folder in your project. You can do like this one, this example, every view frame, or you can just do an individual sheet to run your report. Now I'm not going to run it because it will take a few minutes on this, but let me show you what it comes up with. All right, so I ran one on sheet 7. In that example, we had 8. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 total sheets per spreadsheet here. So on that 8th one, it would create a sheet 2 down here and keep going. So it would just have one sheet 8. So if you have 40, 50 view frames, this box, the sheet box down here on the bottom of Excel will keep going and fill in. And once it fills in here, it will carry over if it needs to. So from here, you would just link it into your design file, just like the other tables, using a data link manager from the Autodesk one. There's some publications on that. Plus, you can go through the CADD training manual for the quantities if you want to go a little bit more detailed information on how to do that process. So that is how this functions. When it's actually running, what it'll do is you'll notice on your screen, it will move around. It's looking at each individual view frame. So it brings it up in a focus and it'll walk down the line. So depending on how much information, it could take a while. And let's talk about Sod quantities. With the advent of having to produce 3D quantities for Sod, we have two methods here, 2 new workflows. And Mike Rocca is going to get into how to create this surface in next week's webinar. So I'm going to show you, Designer gives this to you. We're working with these 2 green shapes here. One is a 3D polyline, which you can see that's what that is because it's got a lot of vertexes there. And the second one here is just a 2D polyline. It's a closed shape. And they look the same size from a plan view standpoint here. But if I take this one here and look at it in Object Viewer, turn it up on its side, you see it's got a 3D shape to it. Now, this corridor was done with a 1-to-1 slope just to make sure that the exaggeration, you could see it. But that's at a 1-to-1 slope, all of a sudden the area of that is a lot bigger. And that's what we have to account for now. Now, this method here is what method Mike's going to show, which is extracting it straight from the corridor itself and extracting a surface and a boundary. And the boundary does maintain its slope. So what I did here is I just went ahead, very simple, for this first method here. Go to Sod and just append, just using the old plus button here, the old regular append Sod compute method to it, because the area is already correct. It's already a 3D area. Now, in instances where you have a non-modeled intersection, you're doing signal design, and it's not modeled, but it's to it to get it to come out correctly. The method for that process, which is second shape here, go to whichever turf you're using, right click, go to Edit Pay Item Data, go to your Ad Hoc tab, and now there's some new options here. Slope, pretty much all you have to do is enter whatever slope you're using. For instance, 4-to-1 slope, You got to enter it as a decimal. Just take your low number, divide it into your high number. So 4 to 1, 1 divided into 4 is 0.25, so you'd enter that in. 2 to 1 slope would be 0.5. And for instances of this example, 1 to 1 would be obviously 1. So what I did, I typed in 1 here and hit OK, and then hit append, and appended that to this dumb 2D shape. And it's flat. It has no 3D qualities to it at all. Now, before I continue though, if you have a 2D shape and you have a lot of different slopes, you're going to have to be aware that whatever you entered in last is still there. So I entered in that 1 is still there. So as you have your different shapes with different slopes, you're going to have to change it each time, append it each time. And when you're done, go back, change it back to 0. So you won't mess up. So you got to do that. Let's say you have these 2 shapes here. And let me show you what happens when we run a little takeoff report here. So I'm going to change that back to current drawing. I'm just going to do a simple, only have 2 items on it. Okay, so I have 2 shapes. One's a 3D polyline, one's a regular 2D polyline. The 3D polyline has its 766 square yards because it came from a 3D source. The performance turf, when I appended with that slope on it, comes up the same amount. So this is a good example of, so that's all for the sod. Like I said, that's also in that quantities training manual that will be posted this week on our website. I have 2 other things to show you. One is on survey. Now, if I go to open the survey user settings, we have extended properties definitions on our points, which gives it a little bit, just an additional attributes for more data. And right now you see it says sample. Well, we already have, FDOT set up here, and it's not loading that by default. It has the correct path here to the user file that it needs to read, but it's, I don't know if it's an Autodesk bug or not, but it's not reading it. What you need to do is click here to import settings from file if you run across this situation, because I think once you do it once, it sticks in there. So when I hit open, it opens on that path you see here, here's that path, there is a FDOT survey user settings user file. And if I open it with my notepad right quick and show you what's in it, it has all your settings here, and there's a extended properties name. It's already set to FDOT, so that's correct. So if we click open and then expand all again, it changes, not only changes the extended properties definition, but it also sets all the other settings that were not set. And the final thing is, if you need help, we use what's a system called Sharewell now. And on our FDOT ribbon under help, a lot of you already use this. This is great because we scour through and assign ourselves or assign others the tickets. As we request support, you have a Sharewell account that you will need to set up if you don't have one now. If you do have one now, you're set up to go. So what you would do, you'd enter it in your issue and it gets logged and we see it. It just makes sure that you put down the software version, Civil 3D, or if it's Bentley, whichever platform has an issue, the SS4 also has the same function. So that's important. Plus, when you send emails to us, we love those too. Either way, whichever's easier, put in your email what platform it is, because we get a lot of emails that start off with a problem when we're trying to figure out, is this, Bentley or Autodesk? It's pretty simple with a screen grab. Of course it is, but in a few occurrences, a lot of people use both platforms that we support. And that is all I have to show today. Everybody have a good day.